I'm part Italian, part German, but my Italian side is the dominant side. So I don't know if you're familiar with the stereotypical Italian that when they go off, oh, trust me, yeah, that's me. So I hate not being accurate. I'm an OCD person too. There's not much that's not wrong with me. Well, it's really funny. I do not practice religion. I think in terms of, and metaphysics is actually kind of close enough that I can get to what I believe, but I think that before we come here, we get with God and we keep all these plans. We set out this palette and of things that we want to happen to us so we can experience it. Well, all I can say is that I have gone through sexual assault and I was a virgin. So breast cancer, I have what's called long QT syndrome, which is I have a defibrillator in my heart because they don't want you dropping dead because the heart misfires. OCD, bipolar, ADHD. What else is wrong with me? I mean,
you're Italian.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much. I have gone through so much stuff. And I think part of that has made me who I am in terms of understanding people and wanting to be kind no matter what. Even, this whole take the high road thing, I truly believe in it because I think that it makes you a better person. If you want to cuss them out and all that in private, fine. Get rid of your anger that way. Negative energy is just so bad for you. It really is. And I don't mind. Saying no Italian is fine.
Hello, everyone. My name is Miwa Lee. I'm a steamy romance author, and welcome to Desire and Dialogue. Today, I am so thrilled to have Monica Burns with us. Hi, Monica.
Hi, Miwa. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Good.
Perfect. So Monica has been writing for 20 years, steamy historical romance and paranormal romance. And she has close to 30 books out. And she's going to share with us some wisdom about what it's like to be a romance author.
Okay. My life philosophy is a romance author.
So Monica has won several awards. She's won 2011 RT Book Reviews Reviewer's Choice Award, 2011 Prism Best of the Best Award, and 2012 Gail Wilson Heart of Excellence Award. So I'm so glad to see you again, Monica, because we met in Denver.
At the debacle, yes.
Yes, Readers Take Denver conference.
Which was actually the best part was meeting people like you. I mean, that was the best part of it.
Yes, I don't know what everyone's saying about that conference, but for me, I had a fantastic time. And I had a great time meeting lots of different people, especially your historical romance panel. That's when I saw you and thought, oh my goodness, she's a hoot. Like, you are the aunt I never had but always wanted, that like buys me booze and shares dirty magazines with me. Yes, you were so much fun.
I try to be.
So glad to have you here today.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
When did you first publish your book?
The very first book I published was Obsession. And that was published by an EPUB publisher called New Concepts Publishing. That was in 2004. And then from there, I just kept I did 2 more books with New Concepts that were kind of like, they were Harlequin category length, but they were historical, erotic. They were all, at that time, erotic romance was the big thing. And I don't know if you're familiar with what RWA is, Romance Writers of America.
Yes.
When erotic romance came on the scene, it came on the scene in the same time ebooks did. So there was this huge kerfuffle. I mean, people were just all upset and in arms on the traditional side saying, traditional's the only way to go. Ebooks, it's all bad editing. It's, there was nothing, it was all negative. And then on our side, the EPUB side, they were all going after, the traditional saying, well, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. So I kind of started in that whole genre, and what I think is ironic is that nowadays EPUB or ebooks are the big thing. And you have so many of those same traditional writers saying how wonderful it is. Erotic romance is basically what I write, but now we call it steamy because it's all mainstream. So it used to be a time when I was really unique and kind of like, on the cutting edge. Now I'm not cutting edge because everybody is cutting edge at this point.
Oh, I see. So back then there weren't as many erotic writers.
There was a lot of erotic romance writers in e-publishing, but not traditional. I'm trying to think. The closest that you could maybe come to erotic romance in traditional publishing was Robin. I think her last name is Schoen, Schone. She was probably the closest that I can think of that came to the same level as what I and a lot of others. I mean, Sylvia Day, she started out with, I think she was writing for Laura's Cave, I'm pretty sure. But she was writing erotic romance. Laura Lee, she writes, or she was, I don't know if she's still writing because I haven't seen her for a long time. She writes shifter characters and menage a trois. And I'll never forget, I was at a conference with her one time, and I was sitting in between her and another author. And she said something. I went, "What do you mean by that?" And I said, "Are you talking about like anal sex?" And she was like, "Yeah, all the time." And I went, "Okay." And she said, she cracked up because I just got this huge flush of color because I'd never, even writing erotic romance, I'd heard of it, but I had not actually talked to another author who did it. So I was just thoroughly embarrassed. She's never let me forget that.
What made you get into writing?
Well, I've been writing since I was 9 years old. First, those stories were like not worth putting in a bird cage at the bottom. They were that bad. So I just kind of wrote sporadically all my life. I submitted to Harlequin Romance back in the 90s, contemporary, and was convinced I was going to get a contract, got the rejection letter, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm not born to be a writer. So I stopped. And then, as I was telling you earlier, I got sick in 2003, I think, with pneumonia, nothing on TV. So I started writing again. And within a year, everything turned around for me. So, you know, I was in the right place at the right time.
When did you start writing historical romance?
I've always, even at 9 years old, I was writing pirate romance back then at 9. But and the Harlequin, they didn't have. I actually was targeting their actual Harlequin Presents line. So I've only written that one, and then I wrote another contemporary that's out that I published myself. That I really enjoyed writing, but it's not small town and it's kind of tame actually. So even though I really like the characters, I decided that I really need to go back to what I'm really good at because I am very good at historicals. One of the things that my Berkeley editor said, she loved my historical voice. Well, I believe in past lives, so I think that has a lot to do with the flavor of my writing because some of it's very kind of like inherent inside me.
Is that how you kind of started writing paranormal romance as well because of your spiritual beliefs?
I'm trying. Well, no, paranormal. I've always believed in psychic capabilities. I may have a little bit. My book Mirage, which is set in Egypt, the heroine was an archaeologist, and she went out looking for Ramses II's summer palace. And I did some research, and I was like, well, no, I know that it's this place right here. And 6 months after the book was finished and actually in hands of agents, they found it exactly where I said it was going to be. I've had other experiences that are really unique, and actually Forever Mine is, I consider that my story from late 1800s.
So if you have any tips for me right now, I'm all ears.
In terms of what, writing a particular type of book?
Should I emigrate to Portugal?
Oh, no. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've never been to Portugal. I'm planning on going back to Rome next year. I was there this past October, and I have never felt so at home anywhere in my entire life. It was like I had gone back for homecoming. You know, I was expecting somebody I knew to walk around the corner. That's how much of an impact it had. And I cannot wait to go back. I'm really excited. And it was really ironic because I was originally thinking London was going to be like that for me. I really thought that I was going to feel really at home. And I had a really good time there, but it wasn't the same kind of feeling at home there that it was in Rome.
It's wonderful that you felt at home in Italy, even though you haven't been back for a long time, right?
My first time going to Italy was this past October. I grew up with, my great-grandparents were from Sicily. My grandfather, I think, was born here. I can't remember. He was an asshole. But, you know, he divorced my grandmother, who I absolutely adored. She was my first teacher, actually. But he had affairs on her and all this sort of thing. I mean, typical bad boy villain type of thing.
Do your books take place in different countries?
They have. Most of them take place in England, in London. I have a couple that are set in Scotland. I've had the Mirage is set in Egypt. Well, it starts out of London, but it goes to Egypt. I think all of my historical ones are actually, I think they're all set either in England or Scotland. So from a marketing standpoint, traditional does have its big advantages in terms of raising, because traditional publishers can get you in front of the big influencers. I don't know if their author is still around. I know Smart Bitches Trashy Books is. I think that's their blog title. Those kind of, what's another one? I can't remember. There was another one that is out there, but they're big in terms of reviewing romance. They have a huge audience that visits those blogs for reviews. So I can't, you and I, we cannot get our books reviewed there as a general rule. I mean, sometimes you might be able to slide in, but it's difficult. But they'll go with the traditional books from Berkeley, Penguin, whoever. And so that is my goal, because I know that if my book is done well enough and it lands on one of their blogs, then that expands my reach, that's the only reason in my mind to go traditional. It's just strictly to expand awareness, to gain readers. Although I will say that the advance, depending on my advances with Berkeley, were nice, and I didn't sell out. So, you know, it just depends on what you want. It depends on what your goal is. Are you wanting to just write and publish, and you don't care about the money? Although I question whether anybody would say that, because who doesn't want to be, you know, Julia Quinn? Although I will say that since they've kind of changed things up, they've gone to places that I won't go, because I won't write a menage a trois, because I want to write what I want to read.
Have you always written?
Even as 9, yeah, there were a lot of kisses. So, but I mean, when growing up, I had this very romanticized viewpoint. And then at 19, when I was sexually assaulted, that completely changed everything. I mean, I remember, I don't know if you're familiar with the book, but any of the books by Kathleen Woodiwiss. It's basically where it starts out where the hero rapes the heroine, and then they fall in love. It's a little bit like, in some respects, like dark fantasy or dark romance, from what I'm understanding. Although I think dark romance takes it maybe a little bit further than Kathleen Woodiwiss did. The Flame and the Flower, I think, is what it was called. I was reading that underneath, I was at lunchtime reading this book underneath the table, and my girlfriend, we were all sitting there like, oh my God. We were laughing.
How old were you?
I was maybe 14, 15 years old. I mean, it was big, that was like the big 50 Shades of Grey moment, for Gen Z or Gen X or whatever. So I was thinking that was normal. Okay. I thought that was what romance was all about, and it isn't. And I learned that very quickly at 19. So when I started writing again, I still wrote kind of tame. Then I got some critique partners who said, why don't you try writing steamier? And I was like, I don't know if I can do that. It's just very uncomfortable. And one of my partners said, write as a cathartic experience. Write what you wish had happened. And I've done that ever since. My work has always been about the characters, and the sex scenes are there for a reason to explore the emotions of the characters. It's the one I'm writing now, chapter 2, they have sex, and the sex is because they're both grieving for someone they lost who was very special to them. And it's one of those spontaneous, I need connection, I need to feel somebody, and they have sex. And then it's like, he says, okay, well, we have to get married. She's like, well, fuck no, it's not happening. So then you've got there's all this backstory and stuff that kind of has to get woven in terms of their inner conflict. So I mean, that sort of thing. And ironically, this too, the female character was at 7. She was part of there was a group of them that were under a crime lord's thumb who put them out to pickpocket. And so now she's feeling she's completely unworthy. And I totally get that. You don't feel worthy. So again, I really use my books as it's a cathartic. It helps get it out. It won't ever cure me, but at least I'm getting some of the darker feelings out, because I tried suicide twice when I was 19. So because I felt that.
I'm sorry.
No, don't say you're sorry, because I just use it to make my characters relatable, and I use it in terms of making myself feel better. I don't know if that makes sense at all. I mean, it does to me. So, but that's why a lot of my heroes are darker.
I'm sure there are a lot of readers who can relate.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's
too prevalent. There's too much of it going on, and I write my heroes so that there are points when they won't be sensitive necessarily, like in the middle of the book or something, to be real assholes. But they're the kind of heroes that, one, will do anything. They'll do anything to be everything to their heroine, and then 2, they will be a grizzly. They will be a bear to anybody who threatens their heroine. At the same time, and they struggle with this too. They struggle with not letting her do things, restraining her power, so to speak. But then she comes back and says, no, you cannot do that, because you're not letting me be who I am. They have to grow, not just through the book, but they have to grow afterwards. So
and because you have been through so much and experienced that depth of emotions, your characters come alive through you.
I think so. I think that's one of the things that my readers, anyway, they say that they feel 3-dimensional. One of the best reviews was Dangerous, the book that got a really great rating on RT Book Reviews when they were still around. One of the best lines that I really appreciated was that it was like, her characters are so 3-dimensional, you think they're based on real people. There are facets of that. I mean, the characters in my Rockwood series they're kind of based on my family, my brothers and sisters. Not necessarily not our individual quirks or anything, but just that we are a very unusual family. We are very tight. You don't see a lot of brothers and sisters that are necessarily tight anymore, at least my experience. We will fight like dogs. We can really get into it sometimes, which is why we avoid politics and we avoid religion discussions. But we will go to hell and back for one of our siblings. I mean, you don't talk bad about my brother or my sisters. So those traits are the kind of things that I'll pull into my book.
Tell me about this book, Scandalous. What inspired you?
Honestly, I had finished watching the whole series Daredevil, Marvel's Daredevil. And I was like, wouldn't it be so cool if I had a hero? And I finished reading a couple of books. Can't remember their name. But where they had the hero who was like a vigilante going out and helping the poor people, sort of a Victorian day Robin Hood. And I wanted to do something similar. I know that there's a lot of people who've written blind heroes or blind heroines, but I wanted him to be able to do something different. And I made him learn how to do martial arts to protect himself, even though he was blind. And I did research, and I actually included in my book at the end, I included a link to a guy who actually does this. He's blind, and he knows how to protect himself with martial arts, which I thought was totally cool. I was like, hey, I've got real life example to show that it's possible. So, and then I wanted to focus on the fact that the heroine, who is plump, or she's more than plump, I wanted to focus on that feeling of self-worth, but I have always been overweight, and I have always felt ugly, and I still do. I mean, I don't care. They tell you to look in the mirror, and, you've got Kate Winslet taking off her makeup, and I'm sitting there going, girl, seriously, you are still beautiful even without the makeup. Give me a break. I don't need to be told that I'm beautiful, because it doesn't equate. Okay. So I wanted to write a heroine that had those kind of feelings, and I wanted a hero that would make her understand he's blind. He can't see her. And he says that's what he loves. He says, this is what I see in you. I see beyond what people see. And I see behind the surface, under the surface. And that is something I've never had. I've been married a long time. I've never had the words, you are beautiful, I love the way you look, said to me. Never.
Well, you don't need him. You are beautiful, Monica Burns.
I was thinking about this because I was putting makeup on. I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this, because it's not going to make me look any better on screen.
I don't know what you're talking about.
and
you're
it was
pretty.
Now, thank you, but and again, this goes back to the self-worth thing that I really focus on most of my books. It's a self-worth issue. But my characters, they're not me, and yet they pull in a lot of my experiences. I think that the more experience you have, the deeper your characterizations can go. And I think that researching things is very important. I do a lot of research for my books, and I'm trying to be very historical accurate.
Do you find that you discover something about yourself as you write?
Sometimes, not very. And in the beginning, yes. In the beginning, like I said, it was very cathartic. I was able to push myself. I have one BDSM book, which is ironic because every romance book, whether it's dark or sweet, whatever the spectrum is, every single romance is going to have some BDSM element. And by that, I mean, you're always going to have a dominant partner and a sub. You are going to have somebody, there might be give and take, but there's always going to be that dynamic, the same as you have in a BDSM book. And so the one BDSM book that I wrote, I'm good friends with Joey Hill. I don't know if you know her, but she's like phenomenal. I love her books, and all she writes is BDSM. And so I had her, kind of explain things to me. She took me to my first dungeon, which was hysterical. She was like, she was like at my side the whole time, going, what do they do with this? And it was one of those, like, I can't believe I brought her here. And then they had this big thing in the middle of the room, big platform, and I said, what that for? And she goes, well, and this guy standing nearby says, oh, it's for play. And I went, play? What are you talking about? And then she goes, it's for when they all get up and do everything. I went, oh my God.
How far did your research go?
Well, it's really funny, because I did not, that was the extent of my research in person. And then I actually found it very interesting. I mean, it's a lifestyle, and I have no problem. I mean, I don't care how you live your life, as long as you don't hurt other people and you don't hurt yourself. Those are the only criteria. Being there was really interesting because it gave me it helped me see certain aspects of why BDSM would be a lifestyle for some people to want to live. If you ever want to see a really good movie on BDSM, you need to watch The Secretary with...
oh, I saw that, yeah.
Oh, that is the most awesome movie. I loved it. I loved it, so I bought it. This is a great one. And so Joey is just very sweet, helped me with the BDSM, but it pushed me. That was the book that pushed me to my limit. I could not go past it. I mean, it was a difficult book for me to write. It was very hard. And in fact,
your comfort zone.
It was. But the thing of it is that I did it. I pushed that envelope, but I just couldn't push it far enough to write it on a regular basis. And I even
what made you want to push the envelope? Well,
one, because it was selling big time. It was selling big at the time. I was like, well, let me capitalize on this. Can't be that hard. And that was a mistake to think that process, because it was hard to write. If it's not something that you know well, you can wind up finding out things about yourself that you either don't like or you question.
So what's the name of the book?
His Mistress.
His Mistress.
She's the dom and he's the sub. And
there was like hotcakes now.
That would be nice.
His Mistress.
There was some darkness in His Mistress because he was dealing with some stuff from his childhood that at the end, as his dom, she was showing him that you will never feel this again with me, because it had to do with his father, and she was showing him that this cannot hurt you because I'm the one in charge. I would love to write more BDSM because I think it is a very interesting lifestyle. Mm-hmm. I think it goes deep down into some of your darkest aspects of your personality. Everybody has this darkness in them. They just don't necessarily know it's there. They don't examine it. But I think it's fascinating.
Life is dark.
Yep, it is.
Maybe it's time for you to write a memoir.
No.
My personal experience.
No. No, no memoirs. No, that I do not want anybody to know me that well. Well, not my sisters will not read my books because my middle sister said I don't want to get in your head that much, and I'm like, what I write is not who I am. You know, I don't.
Yeah.
And my other sister, my youngest one, said she doesn't understand how I can write sex, and it's hard for her to understand because of what happened to me, how I can write it. And I basically just told her, I said, look, I'm writing what I wish had happened and what I think should happen and what I believe can happen between two people who love each other.
The fairy tale.
Yeah, it is. But the thing of it is that there's a lot of people out there, my understanding, and who I've talked with, it is, the fairy tale is real. It just depends on who the people. I mean, one of my good friends, the first time that they met, they talked like for hours. And friends had introduced them. And then it took several months, but they basically fell in love first sight. And they were married with a really short time afterwards. I'm sure it's close to 40 years, maybe more. And they are still just as much in love now as they were when they first met. I mean, the things he does for her just boggles my mind. It's like, he actually is very much the hero that I write. He will.
Cinnamon roll.
Yeah, I mean, I remember one of the things that she posted he had done a while back. They were in bed and she was reading and I think he was reading too. And she goes, something about the fact that she needed to get some juice. And she was talking about energy. Next morning she gets up, he's already gone to the store and had orange juice sitting out there for her, and she was like, what are you doing? What? And he said, because you said you wanted juice. That is, to me, like, that's unbelievable. I mean, you just
that is romance. That is,
exactly, which is why I'm saying, I mean, I know that we all say that romance books are fairy tales, and yes, most of it is, but I think there's a lot of solid elements inside the stories themselves that are reflective based on people that I've met.
Oh, those are all interesting stories. Now you'll have to give me the name and phone number of that awesome man.
And Lou will not appreciate that.
Yeah, I know. Your friend will answer the phone and I'll go, bitch.
No, she's very lucky, and I think those stories though are far and few between. I think you're very lucky if you get that. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, not everybody does.
Everyone. Well, that's why the rest of us write romance novels, right?
I would think so. I think that's probably one reason. I'm also an optimist. So I think that when you write, again, you write what you love, you write what you want to read. I want to read happy, uplifting. Negative stuff, I'll read dark stuff. I mean, I like Anne Rice, and I love Stephen King. I love Christine Feehan. Have you ever read any Christine Feehan stuff?
No.
Oh, she writes vampires that are just like totally awesome. Oh my God, you've got to find one of her books. The Dark Prince, I think, is one of them. Really, really good. A good book. It's phenomenal. I mean, I go on about her. She's paranormal. So I just love her writing. But
yeah, I prefer my main characters not to be blood sucking,
Well, but they don't come across. These guys don't come across as that. But they don't come across that way. I mean, I think most of her is that they do a blood supply from somewhere. I mean, they don't go any.
Oh yeah, because that's normal. You have blood supply in your fridge on your first date.
Yeah, but see, and I grew up. I loved the Dracula movies, the B movies on Saturdays when they would put them on. Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. Those I loved. I still like to watch them. They're very corny now, but I enjoyed watching them because I was always like huddled up on the sofa, and then my dad would hear me. I'm watching one, and he would get down and he would crawl towards the side of the couch here, and he would wait for just the right moment before he came up over top. And you never saw any. I would have been great at the Olympics for the long jump because I went from one end of the couch to the other in like one leap. So he.
Best father in the world.
Yeah, I mean, we butt heads a lot, but I was devastated when he died. So yeah, my mom too. So I had good parents. In fact, better parents than what I am, and I was very lucky. Not everybody's that lucky. So.
Well, you are a very big person for admitting that.
What's the point in things happening to you if you don't learn from them?
Right.
So writing actually helps me put some of those things into perspective. I can write either really bad parents or parents that are really, really good. I think you draw from your experiences, and I think it makes a difference in terms of your writing in general. Mm-hmm. So in some respects, my age, which is like really high up, I think that I don't think I come across as old as what I am. So, but I've been socially immature most of my life. But
welcome to the club.
I mean, all my friends, most of my friends are like 10, 15 years younger than me because I get along so well with them because I'm in that mindset. But I think that has a lot to do too with your ability to write. I think everything that you are as a person, I think, goes into your writing.
I agree with you. Every trope, somebody's done it hundreds of times, and the settings are very similar. So I think the main difference between one book to another is our personality.
Right. Or if you're like writing to market. And that was something
Okay,
funny too. Writing to market is when you're writing to a specific readership. That's why I wrote Virgin Heroes, because Virgin Heroes were big at the time. They were popular. That's what New York does. They'll find authors that they really like, and they will see who sticks to the wall and who doesn't. So they'll ask for certain types of books, and that's what they'll be looking for, because they're looking for what is currently selling on the market and how where the genre is on the bell curve. So for instance, my paranormals, my Order of the Zachari books, which I absolutely love. Assassin's Heart is one of the best books I've ever written. I love that book. But I hit the bell curve like about right here. Okay, you can't see my hands. I gotta lift them up. I was like right at the tail end of the big paranormal push, which was so frustrating.
So, welcome back.
Well, I've already decided that once I finish what I'm doing now, that I'm gonna go and I'm gonna write historical in that world, because I love that world. It's such a that series defines who I am. If you really want to know who I am as a person, I love swords. I mean, I have like almost 8 swords hanging on my walls now.
Oh,
I'm a huge fan of sword. My most recent prized possession, I'm not going to get it out, but it's my lightsaber from Disney World. They got a kick out of me.
Serious now. Serious collector.
They got a kick out of me at Disney World, because when we went through this big process, you make it and everything, and then they make you turn on. I went, cool. And then at the end, the gal said, at the end, she came up, she says, I don't think I've ever had a better reaction than what you did when you turned it on.
How has your writing changed over the years?
It's gotten increasingly better. I mean, I will say it's gotten better in terms of craft-wise. I think that my actual story and the characters, I think I've always gotten that nailed down. I think that that's always been accurate. Sometimes better than, some books are better than others in terms of the character development. But I would say that I'm really at the top of my craft right now. I will outline it, but then I completely, it's sort of like my favorite character on Legends of Tomorrow. Make the plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, make a new plan. That's exactly my writing. Think about some of the women who had supportive husbands in the late 1800s who were suffragettes. A lot of those had husbands who supported them. A lot didn't.
Right.
But you had husbands that did support their wives' independence. So those are kind of heroes that I write. I'm writing basically guys that did exist. They just was like maybe a handful of them. So it makes a difference. And as far as historical accuracy goes, I make sure that I use OneNote for my research that I do. I can't tell you how many Worth gowns that I've got pictures of in my database, or little snippets of things that did or didn't happen. I mean, in Scotland, for instance, a woman can be the chief of the clan. So in Scotland, the independence of women is much stronger than it is like in England. So I mean, those are the kind of things that I draw upon. And because the Rockwoods are descended from Scots, the Stuart line, I'm able to like really play that up, because naturally their women are going to be feistier, more independent. So I think the balance comes in terms of how you write the character and what the character's motivations are, and weaving in the historical piece of it. For me, it's very easy. It's very difficult to tell you how I do it, because it's so innate.
You've been doing it for so long as well.
I can't write Regency. I don't like Jane Austen. There, I said it. I can't stand her writing. It's boring.
All right, bye. It's over. This
Okay.
is over.
All right. Thanks. All right. We're good. All right. Seriously, we're good. I'll shut up. See, this is why I didn't want to do this, because I knew it would get out of control. And
And this is exactly why I wanted you to do it.
It's been almost 2 hours. Are you crazy? How are you going to edit this down? Nobody's going to want to listen to me talk this long. It's crazy.
Everyone's going to want to listen to you because, I don't know, refreshing.
Unfiltered.
Which is refreshing.
To some
you're
people.
my twin in that respect. So.
Oh, that's cool. We just don't have the same hair color.
Exactly.
You look good in red and I don't.
Yeah, I don't wear yellow. Yeah,
No.
you're still hot.
Stop.
You're a hot.
Just stop.
You're a hot old lady.
I'm a bawdy old lady. Let's get real here. I'm a bawdy old lady. This is one thing that younger authors do not understand. And I'm talking about authors that are younger than you, like late 20s, from like 28 to 35, who are writing sex. Mm-hmm. Babe, you have got no idea. When you get older, you're going to want it just as much then as you do now, because nothing changes. What changes is your ability to do certain things. I mean, you can't get twisted up, and there's just some things you can't do anymore. But the need and the desire to be connected to somebody that you love like that does not go away. So
You can only have morning sex because you don't have the energy in the evening.
yeah, unless you've slept all day. I think that that's, for a long time, I've thought that maybe my age had something to do with not getting enough readers. And I think some of that was a misconception on my part, because I think that historicals were viewed as being tame, and they don't understand that they're not tame, that they can be sexy. I mean, you can be just as steamy as a contemporary, if not more, because there's things you can do that you normally would not be able to do in a contemporary.
I think there's so much more tension built in the history.
Yeah, well, especially in the Victorian era, because in the Victorian era, sex was viewed, well, Queen Victoria and Albert, it was focused on family. That whole era from Victoria and Albert was just so restricted and so tight about things. So, but that whole piece of working with that restriction, because you can't do that in a contemporary, because nobody would believe it. It's not believable to work with that kind of, unless you wrote it as being a conservative religious faction, coming from that and getting caught or whatnot, then maybe you could write it. But then that would, at that point, I don't think would be a romance. So.
Yeah, with contemporary, the question is more about why can't they have sex? What happened that prevents them from having sex? And there can't be too many scenarios.
Right. Or the characters they've been betrayed in the past, and you put them together because it sets everything up. And then, but that's basically, for me, contemporary romance. It's always based on some sort of betrayal. I was actually looking at something the other day about different types of stories that are there, and that there's only like 7 basic story plot type of things. I think, in far as contemporary fiction goes, I would say that's, and this is just an opinion. I mean, it's not necessarily fact, and I'm not necessarily right. I just think you're more limited, which I find really kind of amusing, because everybody says historicals are limited, but I think you're not. I think the limitation is only what you limit in your mind. I mean, well, Bridgerton has done a lot to help that, but I don't think her books are that steamy. I've only read the one. I don't remember which one. I think it was actually Michael, or the one that they're all hot about, the Francesca's book, where she meets, if I recall correctly, there was only maybe 1, too sexy.
It's very low steam. Yeah.
It's so, but Shonda Rhimes, Grey's Anatomy is a good example. My God, every time I turn around, there's somebody going into a closet to have sex, and it's with everybody else. She is very, it's focused basically on the characterizations and what they're going through at a particular time. So I think that with the Bridgertons, she's just basically brought out the erotic romance piece of historical romance out into mainstream. And so,
yeah, we just need an HBO version of it, full frontal.
I would love for her. If she read Forever Mine, that is like, somebody the other day asked how many sex scenes were in it. So I had to go through and I had to think, okay, well, he fists her, or not fists her, he uses his fingers to bring her to come. Then she has an orgasm when he's sucking on her nipples, and then this was for the steamy petticoats. Somebody wanted to know if it was steamy enough. What was really funny is that's the book that I have my ad that says great story, but too much should be rated for smut. In that book, because that book it's a long book, because there are 2 storylines, and because of different things that happen. So when you look at the percentage of the curse words and the sex, it's a low percentage. And so that was what this other reader was going on, because she was like, okay, well, if that's a low percentage, it can't be too steamy. And I'm like, no, it's steamy. It's just that there's a lot of stuff that happens.
Forever Mine, people, Forever Mine.
Yeah, there was a gal who recently, she's an audio book reviewer, just recently, and she said something to me on, it was either Threads or Instagram, but she posted like, oh my God, I love this. She was just going off and like all kinds of, she said, I want to crowdsource the next book. And that's how much she loved the book. And because she pulled in Stephanie and Zach to say how much they loved it. So I can tell you, when I listen to that book, I cringe sometimes.
Why?
Because of the sex scenes. Yeah, it's like, oh my God. Because, when you hear them, it's a lot different when you read them in your head than if you hear somebody. I mean, it's different if it's what you've written. I mean, if it's somebody else, it doesn't bother me. or not bother is the wrong word, but it just makes me sort of like, oh, I can't believe I wrote that. I should have written it like this. So, but, I don't write sex just to write sex. I write sex.
Story, it's part
yeah,
of
it has
life,
to be. I mean,
part of romance.
well, I'm sorry, but if you get married, even if you're just like dating somebody, you're gonna have sex. I mean, it's a part of life. It's how it's not just how we procreate anymore. It is, and it never has been. I don't think. I think that there have been just as many wayward souls, if you want to call it that, in terms of a historical perspective, because it was always expected that the man should always do it, but the woman was terrible because she asked for pleasure. So, which really that's a patriarchal society, and we won't go into that, but that's another thing.
Still suffer from it.
Well, and that's in my books. I try, and I don't necessarily try to break through the glass ceiling, but one of my heroines that I'm working on, she can throw a knife as well as a circus performer, and she doesn't miss. So when a guy sees her do that, he's going to back off. I mean, and the heroine that I was editing earlier, she can fist fight. And she basically beats the crap out of a guy who tries to assault her in a dark alley. I try and make my. Yeah, I do admit that the one in the beating the guy up in the alley, I'm kind of concerned about that, and I need to get that to a beta reader because I'm not sure if that will come across believable.
Is that your next release?
No, the next release that one's almost finished. That's the Christmas one in October. But this one, which is book 7 in the Rockwood series, is Theo and Genevieve's story. And she's the one that was made a prostitute at the age of 7. So she's got a lot of trauma, and I'm hoping that people, when they read the scene, are going to understand that it is her fury. And I might have to tweak it more. I don't know. But and I want them to understand too that it's not just her fury; it's her wanting to take back her own person because when they have the sex in that very second chapter. And he says, well, we need to get married. And she's like, no, what is wrong with me enjoying pleasure? Why do I have to get married just so I can enjoy pleasure? And you can't tell me that it wasn't pleasurable. I wouldn't mind doing it again. I don't mind being your mistress, but I do not want to marry you. I don't want to marry any man. So in a sense, he needs to learn how to not take away her power, that's going to be a struggle for him. I mean, Theo is not necessarily going to understand that. So,
and when is that coming out?
I hope sometime first of the year, if not sooner. I mean, it's going to depend on. I've been working on it for 2 months, and I'm only at chapter 7. This one is one of those that are particularly difficult, and because it is so close. Well, it's very close to the truth in terms of the feelings and the emotions that sexual assault victims go through. Because it doesn't matter what kind of assault that you deal with. I remember when I think it was Pleasure Me that came out, and I did a blog on Lori Foster's blog, and she had a blog at the time, and I did an article basically about being a sexual assault survivor and what happens and how you feel and all that. And now it's cathartic to write about it, and I had so many people send me private emails describing what had happened to them, and I kept responding back, oh my God, this is so much worse than when I had it. I feel kind of blessed in a way. And they would respond back like, no, it doesn't matter. But the women that wrote me, that forever changed my whole perspective on assault, not just from my perspective, but it gave me a different perspective with all these other women.
It's going to be a very powerful character. I look forward to reading it.
I think it'll be powerful. Whether or not somebody enjoy it, I don't know. I don't want to go too dark with it. You know what? I really wish I could write historical romantic comedy. I really, because I love reading that. But I don't have, my sense of humor is very quirky. I mean, my favorite scene in Scandalous is not a scene, apparently nobody thought it was that funny, was when she serves him bull balls. She serves him awful. And she's like, she thinks she's doing it, serving balls. She's not liked him for a certain amount of time. And now she's trying to say, well, I kind of like you. And so she serves him these big balls from this bull. And he's like he doesn't find it all that funny. So then it goes on the next scene, and then he gets her all hot and bothered, and then he drops her on the bed and says, too bad. And he walks away. Well, she's all she gets bent out of shape about it. And then she goes charging into his bedroom and says, you are going to fuck me until I tell you not to fuck me, sort of thing. So I found that whole scene funny. But I don't think other people saw it as funny. But I saw it as funny.
No, I can see that being funny.
Yeah, but I don't know that
The banter
necessarily came across as funny, is what I'm saying.
Read it, people, and judge for yourself if it's funny or not. Yeah.
I mean, there's other things when I can do some snark. Some of my snarky things are funny. Or I know, because I've actually had some readers say that they laughed, cried.
Yeah, you have a great sense of humor.
Yeah,
You had everyone clutching their belly.
But that's in person. That doesn't necessarily equate through my writing, which is what I find so ironic.
Last question. What advice would you give to beginner authors that are trying to publish or published?
If you've never written a book before, or you're in the middle of writing your very first book, you need to learn the rules in order to break the rules. You need to understand that there are certain things that is expected of you as a writer from the audience. So you have to make sure that those rules are obeyed. At the same time, and an example is in time travel, you're not supposed to kill off the hero or the heroine. Well, guess what I did?
You killed off your...
It's a past life thing. So, I mean, but there is a reason. There's a reason why everything happened. I mean, he had to learn certain things. It's complicated. But that sort of thing, I do things that are like, you're not supposed to have cheating. People don't like cheating books. And I asked somebody one time, I said, we mean, even if it's like the person who's cheating hasn't done anything, they're being abused or something. No, you can't be cheating. And I'm like, well, fuck that. I'm going to so
there are people that like cheating.
Well, but the cheating in this book was not on purpose. It basically was a question of, she's been abused and she meets this hero in the dark. She thinks he's somebody else, that she thinks he's a friend. She's trying to help. And she winds up being in his arms. And then at that point, it kind of escalates to the point that she wants to feel alive. And she hasn't felt alive for a long time. So they have hot sex against the tree. And then he finds out that she's married, and that kind of goes off on a whole new tangent. So, but again, sex drives the character, and who they are and what they want drives that whole thing. So for a writer who's just starting out, that sort of thing needs to be, you need to be cognizant of that. And you need to actually probably read a lot in whatever genre that you're wanting to write. Which, if you are wanting to write a book, you might feel like your waste of time is not the word, but you're eager to get started. You want to write this, and you're anxious. But if you don't know that genre, or the rules of the genre overall, it's not going to be the kind of book that you want it to be. And I know what that feels like, because I'll come up with these ideas, and I'm like, well, how would I accomplish something? So for a new writer, you have to, again, it goes back to the rules. You have to know what those rules are, because there really are no rules. So again, it goes back to make the plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, create a new plan. So I mean, but so that is for the writing piece. Now, as far as the publishing piece, write the first book, publish it, spend 2 weeks at the most marketing it if it's your very first book. Then go on and write the second book. Completely forget about doing all social media ads. Don't look at reads. Don't look at how many sales you got. Just walk away from it. Pretend you did not write a book and pretend you did not publish it. Write the second book. Do the same thing. Publish it. 2 weeks of marketing. I mean, you can do periodic stuff like, oh, I wrote this book. Walk away from it. You have to do that at least with 5 books before you can really start to market. And the backlist is everything. And I didn't believe this. I'm the first one to say I had mentors. I've had New York Times bestselling authors who I'm friends with still to this day, who tried to get it through my hard head. And I'm very difficult. I do not want to listen to anybody. So I have to learn from my own mistakes. Backlist is everything. The more books you have out, the better your sales are going to be. So you need to make sure that you are not focused on just one book, but that you are continuing to write. I also believe, too, that series do better than standalones. However, if you can write a standalone inside a series, that will bring continuity, and it will make your books more sellable, I guess is the word. they'll be more attractive to readers because you're keeping them in the same world and you are giving a story that doesn't stop, and you don't have to. You might want to, at the end of the book, you'll get the happy ending, and you might want to follow up on the next characters if you build that in. And that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. I'm struggling with that now because I got this whole damn spy thing going on. I'm really sorry I started the damn thing because now I got to figure out, with the current book, I got to figure out exactly what are they going to do, and so it's a pain in the ass. So I really kind of prefer just writing in the same world and letting each book stand alone, basically, like I did the first 5 books. But that the series for a new writer is a good thing, because if you write, even if it's only 3 books in a series, or do a trilogy, and then you focus on a different world, you're going to have something that's rock solid to promote, and then you'll say, well, in addition to this, I'm working on X, and you might like this too. So marketing is very crucial, but I'm getting to the point, actually I'm at the point with Facebook where I'm saying, fuck it. They're really just, they're wanting to scan all of your data and they will not let you opt out. So for a new writer, I would also do this caveat. Do not put out any kind of original content. Do not put out excerpts. Do not put blurbs. You're going to have to do, I mean, there's no way around that. But try to avoid putting any kind of original content out, because it's going to go into a database and eventually somebody is going to use it.
We're talking about Facebook.
Yeah, or anything. I mean, Meta owns Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. So anything you put out there is going to be original content. So for a new author, you don't want that, because until you're established and you've got lots of books out, if somebody were to pick up on your original content and use it in their thing, you could be accused of being a plagiarist with Amazon, and Amazon will shut down your account like crazy. You have to be very cautious. So, I mean, I think it's a lot harder for new authors today than it was for when I first started. Because there's one thing, people don't understand artificial intelligence anyway. There's 4 different kinds basically, but I won't get into that. But for a new author, you need to be aware of artificial intelligence and what you do in terms of your own content and how it's getting out there. And don't give up. I've been at it for 20 years and I've had many different successes, but if you give up, you never know, you might miss that one thing. I'm going to be one about being famous after I'm dead. Seriously, I'm not kidding you. It's after I'm dead. Somebody's going to find my books and it's going to be like Jane Austen.
Yeah. The one unpublished manuscript.
After my stroke in April, it was like one of those, well, maybe I should hurry up and finish something.
So what's your website?
On my website, monicaburns.com.
monicaburns.com. Keep in touch with Monica by going to her website and signing up for her newsletter.
Yep.
And keep your eyes out for Monica's new releases.
I don't even have a title.
You might have a title?
No, well, the title for the book at Christmas, the Christmas one is Met an Angel on Christmas Day, but that's too long. I need to shut it down or go down with it. But
that's why you have to keep in touch with her.
Yep. Surrender is the one that I'm working on now, though. Surrender. But that's not for another 6 months or so. But
well, people, she has almost 30 books, so you have plenty to work on before you get to her new releases.
And I'm really sorry I talked for so long.
Oh, you were so much fun. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I know you thought this was out of your comfort zone, but I knew you were a natural.
It's still out of my comfort zone. It's never going to be in my comfort zone. Again, because I talk too much.
Well, I had a blast listening to you.
Thank you.
Lots of great wisdom in there. So thank you again, Monica. Best wishes with your writing.
All right, thank you. Same with you.
Keep in touch. Thank you. Bye.